What's up, Star Chasers? Happy New Year! And today I'm doing an anatomy study of an artwork called The Marriage of Psyche and Cupid by the Renaissance artist Raphael, based on the print here seen on the screen. So what I'm doing is I'm using an app on my iPad called Skelly, which allows you to either use a realistic or a more blocky style skeleton, and you can either use the pose library or create your own poses to use as drawing reference. For me, I actually want to do a proper drawing exercise, so instead of being really quick about it, I'm taking my time to actually look at the reference image and pose the skeletons so I can understand what's happening with the bodies. Afterwards, then I'm screenshotting the final pose to save to my iPad. Now I find sometimes it's quite a bit fiddly trying to get the exact pose based on the image, and you can only use one skeleton at a time. So first I'm getting the pose of Psyche, and then afterwards I'm doing the pose for Cupid. Because I have to do it 2 different times, it means that the perspective is not exactly correct, but I'm just using these skeletons as a base to start the drawings. Afterwards, then I am copying the screenshots to my drawing software. So on my iPad, I have Adobe Fresco, and I'm just using the pencil tool to trace over these skeletons. Now, in this case, I'm actually using it as a drawing exercise, and tracing over the skeletons helps me to warm up and to understand how the poses are constructed. Now, this is the starting point, and you can't always get the poses correct the first time, and the perspective is not always correct. So after I do the first pass, I lower the opacity again and create a new layer to then add any corrections that I want to do, such as redrawing the pelvis from the correct angle. Here I did a lot of reworking on this drawing, so when I first put the skeleton in, I was then starting to draw over the flesh, and I used blue so I could color Cupid, and I used red to color Psyche. So that meant if I needed to add any corrections to either of the bodies, I didn't have to destroy anything on the other body. I find drawing 2 characters to be harder because you're really drawing 2 people. So having 2 distinct colors just helps me to understand what I'm doing without getting too confused. Now, using that base skeleton was a great starting point, but the pose was really stiff and it didn't feel as though it had the right energy. So then I redrew over it again, and this time I'm using more expressive lines so I can get the energy of the poses. So this is something that animators like to do, where you're putting more pressure, where you see that there's going to be weight in the body, such as leaning or strengthening, emphasizing certain muscle groups. So it looks as though there's motion and activity. And from those simple gestures, then I'm going back in and redrawing some of those shapes that we had before, such as the muscle groups and the bones. Now, I've done a lot of anatomy practice, so I actually remember a lot of the key muscle groups, so I'm able to just do it off by heart. But if you find that you need some help, you can always use a Bridgman drawing book, or there's even muscle group apps that you can get for your phone and such that you can use as reference as well when constructing the bodies. So on the time lapse, it looks quite fast, but I spent quite a few hours really just refining the shapes. So even though my drawings don't look exactly the same as the initial reference, I find that there is a lot more expression and energy than that first stiff pose we started off with. Once I was happy with the construction of the body, then I could go in and start refining and adding the flesh on top and adding the fabric on top. I'm not using any special tools at this time. I only have the default pencil tool and the eraser tool that's on Adobe Fresco, so I'm just going in and adding more pressure and intensity so I can add more shadows, and using the eraser to take away some of the intensity to make it look lighter. If you look at the reference, we do have distinct shadows and light showing through, so I'm trying to copy that across as well. Afterwards, as we get closer to the end, I'm combining the 2 drawings so that the characters are now interacting with each other. For example, Cupid's back leg is hidden behind Psyche, so I'm integrating that to make it look more in the shadows. And Psyche's arm is in front of Cupid, so it means that it's going to cover up part of his body. Afterwards, then I've added a black layer on top, so that way I can color them both to look as though they're gray and more integrated together. So here is the final artwork. It took a while to do, actually. The sun was setting, and then I realized, wow, it took a really long time. But actually doing these anatomy exercises are quite fun, and it just helps me get better and better at my craft. So I thought it was a fun exercise to do. Anyway, I have completely recorded it and edited this video on my iPad, so please don't bully me for the quality of the video. I'm just trying to use the technology I have available. And if you want to start doing anatomy drawings, you can take some of these tips and hopefully that can help you out. So hope you have a good new year, and I'll see you later. Bye everyone.